In this video I'm going to show you how to use Thymeleaf with checkboxes and Spring MVC. So what we're trying to do here is we've got a person and we're just trying to add a few drinks to that person object on the server. So jumping into the code, here's our person. So what we're just saying is we want to add Coke and Fanta into this list of drinks on the person object. So apart from that, this object is very simple, and the drink object just has an ID and a name. So the ID just represents the primary key in a database, for example, to try and make this as realistic as possible. So here's our form. I've already re-typed it out because most of it's just boilerplate, but I'm going to explain it because in case you haven't seen it before. So we're posting this form to this endpoint here, which is bound to the person object. So here's our endpoints. So when we get the form, we're simply creating a fake person. List of test data here for the drinks, and then because Spring provides us the model, we're simply adding these the person and the drinks to the model object, so we can refer to these variables in the template itself because we've added them to the model. And then we're just creating the list of checkboxes by iterating through the selectable drinks that we've added to the model. So here's basically the whole reason I'm doing this video is to see how this corresponds to adding drinks to the person object. So sort of what is this part doing? It's basically saying, it's telling Spring and Thymeleaf, specifically it's telling Spring how to, when you have selected drinks, where should I store them? So this asterisk here is just shorthand for writing the full person.drinks out, because whenever you bind an object to th object in a form, you don't have to write the full object name out, you can just drop it and refer to the property directly. So it's just saying that, okay, when I've selected Coke and Fanta, where should I store them? In the person object. So I should store them at person.drinks location. So therefore, all the selected drinks should go in here. That's all it's saying. And this th value is sort of where the magic comes in of Spring. So because this is the primary key, what we're saying is when we post the form back to the server, it's going to hit this endpoint, and before this gets called, Spring is going to try and recreate a person based on all the form fields. So Spring's going to need to know how to recreate the drinks and how to recreate the person. So if you look at the source, here's our checkboxes, right? Here's are the primary IDs for each of the drinks. So this is going to give Spring some assistance in locating each drink for us. So let's just run the application and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to restart that. And reloading. So if we try and add Coke and submit, I'm going to get an error, and it's not immediately obvious why. So in order to help us, we're going to enable some logging, and it's going to give us a hint at what is wrong. So let's go back, refresh that. I'm going to clear some of this output, and I'm going to select Coke again and submit. And then let's have a look at the logs. So I'm going to have to go off a fair bit. So here's the biggest clue. It's basically saying no string constructor found on type drink. So what Spring is doing is before it calls this endpoint, so it doesn't ever reach this endpoint because it can't create a person. So we need to give it some help. At the moment, Spring can't find anything to convert a string to a drink. And what is string? Well, string in this context is simply referring to the primary ID, the primary key here, that we've encoded as a string for each drink, because in our template code we've said that the th value will be the drink ID. So we need to tell Spring how to convert from this string to a drink. So how can we do that? Well, if you use Spring data repository, it will automatically create all the converters for you. So you don't actually need to do what I'm about to do now. But this is a useful tip in Spring in general when you want to do stuff like this. So what you can do is you can create a converter. I'm just going to call it a drink converter. And it needs to implement a converter from the Spring framework. So we need to go from a string to a drink. So this here will be the ID, the primary key of the drink encoded as a string, because that's what our form parameter is going to be sent in. So for the moment, I'm just going to sort of put in some debugging here. And we also need to tell Spring about this by making it a Spring bean, by annotating it with a component, and Spring will pick this up when it does the scanning. So let's see if we've made any progress here. So remember, this value here will be sent to the server in the post request, and that's what Spring is going to send into our converter. So we're not getting errors now. So I'm just going to find a section here where it calls our converter. I'm just going to clear all that because I've got a lot of debugging enabled. So alright, so you see here, it says trying to convert ID1 into a drink, and then it hits our endpoint of saying person has been posted. But notice how nothing's actually in the person yet because we haven't converted it into a drink yet. So that's why in this converter method, we can simply just, in my endpoint, because I'm only using test data, we can simply just sort of, I've got some pre-done code here, but I'll explain it as I paste it in. So because normally you'd get this data from a database, you'd inject a repository in here and then look up the string ID, pass it to an init and look it up in the repository to get the actual drink. But here I'm just passing the ID into an integer, and then I'm just getting the corresponding index into the array and then returning it, which would match up with the test data that I'm using in the post endpoint here. So that's going to retrieve us the correct drink. So if I just reload that again, so say I'm going to pick Coke and Sprite. I'll just clear some of this stuff. So that's posted. So we can see here, person has been posted. Notice our drinks actually contain the drinks now, because we've told our converter how to get from the string ID into the actual drink, which in turn um, tells Spring how to actually, uh, you know, once it's got a drink object, it knows where to store the drinks, because we've told it the path of where we should store all selected drinks. So that's pretty much how it works. But like I was saying, if you use Spring Data repositories, all this gets done for you. And if you look at the debug logs, you can see sort of how Spring is doing it. But in a nutshell, this is actually what you can mentally think of actually happening under the covers, which is pretty cool. And just to finish off, you might have noticed that we're losing information here. We've lost our ID and name, and that's because we're not sending this back into our form. So when we're doing the post, the ID and name aren't being sent back, which means the server isn't rehydrating it as a person because it's not there. So to get around, this is the way you do it in when you post back to servers. If you're not using a specific field, you can add hidden ID fields, hidden fields. So these hidden fields, we're simply just saying, look, I've got a person.id here, and this is going to be the value for it, and person.name. So if I reload this and show you the source, so if we go here, it says, we've got an ID here and a name, and these are the values. And then when the post is received on the server, Spring will know, okay, I know that the person.id should have the value 30, and person.name should have the value John Smith, and then it will recreate that. So now if I say I want to just submit Fanta, so now you can see John Smith is being kept there. And you can see now here, ID John Smith is kept, and then our value Fanta is there. So hope that helps, and yeah, thanks for watching.